They told her she didn't belong there. Alicia Monroe, dressed in a simple charcoal suit, stepped into the towering marble lobby of a bank she secretly owned. A manager smirked, a teller rolled her eyes, and a security guard reached for his radio. Phones came out, live streams began, comments poured in. Humiliation spreading in real time, but Alicia didn't raise her voice. She simply opened her black briefcase and sent one short message. Code Black Protocol. Minutes later, black SUVs screeched to a halt outside, and the bank that had mocked her was about to learn who really held the power. The marble lobby of Horizon First National glimmered under the late afternoon sun pouring through towering glass walls. The ceiling was a chandelier-lit dome, designed to impress clients who moved millions through its accounts. On most days, Alicia Monroe would have entered through the private executive elevator, bypassing the crowds. Today, however, she had chosen to walk through the front entrance, dressed not in her usual tailored designer suit, but in a simple charcoal jacket and low-heeled shoes. Her hair was tied back in a neat bun, and she carried a black Italian briefcase with nothing but 3 small silver initials engraved near the handle: AM. She walked quietly, surveying the place she technically owned. No one noticed her, at least not as anyone important. To the employees behind the polished counters, she was just another middle-aged black woman in modest clothes, stepping nervously across a floor reserved for high-value clients. Alicia approached the VIP services desk, where a teller named Lindsay Hart stood behind a mahogany counter. Lindsay was young, confident, and visibly irritated, as though Alicia's presence were an inconvenience. "Regular customer service is over there, ma'am," Lindsay said, gesturing toward a line on the far side of the lobby where ordinary walk-in clients waited. Her voice carried the faint, cutting sweetness of someone trained to smile while condescending. Alicia paused. "I'm here to speak with the private banking division," she said softly, her voice calm, unwavering. Lindsay frowned. "Do you have an appointment?" she asked, as though the very idea of Alicia being a VIP was absurd. Before Alicia could answer, Ethan Cole, the branch manager, approached. Ethan was a tall man in his mid-30s, sharp suit, polished shoes, and an expression permanently balanced between boredom and superiority. "What's going on here, Lindsay?" he asked, deliberately loud enough for nearby customers to hear. "She's asking for private banking," Lindsay replied, lowering her voice, but not enough to hide her disbelief. Ethan gave Alicia a slow up-and-down look, his lips curling into a smirk. "Ma'am, these services are for our premier clients. You're aware of that, right?" Alicia met his gaze without flinching. "Yes," she said evenly, "and I'm aware of your service standards too." The tension thickened. A few customers turned their heads, sensing a confrontation. One of them, an elderly woman with silver hair and a pearl-handled cane, rose from a nearby seat. Eleanor Price, a longtime client known for her bluntness, stepped forward. "Young man," she said to Ethan, her voice trembling but firm, "you might want to check who you're talking to before embarrassing yourself." Ethan gave her a dismissive glance and waved his hand. "This is an internal matter, ma'am. Please have a seat. We have protocols to follow." "Protocols?" Eleanor scoffed. "Or prejudice?" A few people gasped. Ethan's face tightened, but he ignored her, focusing back on Alicia. "Do you have proof of assets? Employment verification? Maybe even a letter explaining why you're requesting premium services?" His tone was deliberate, almost theatrical. Alicia set her briefcase on the counter. The subtle click of its latch echoed louder than the murmurs building in the room. "Would you like to clarify why you're asking me and not the gentleman you just served 5 minutes ago?" she asked, nodding toward a white client leaving the counter with a satisfied grin. Ethan's smirk deepened. "We have to be careful with certain requests. You understand. Fraud prevention, money laundering protocols. Surely you've heard about them." At that, several onlookers exchanged uneasy glances. The implication was crystal clear. Near the far desk, a young intern named Jacob Reed, barely 20 and always glued to his phone, had been live streaming parts of his day for his modest online audience of 50. Now, seeing what was unfolding, he discreetly angled his phone toward the counter. "You guys seeing this?" he whispered to his followers. "This lady's getting grilled for no reason." The viewer count began to climb. 53, 68, 92. Ethan noticed Jacob and frowned. "Sir, no filming in the lobby," he barked. But it was too late. People were already pulling out their phones, capturing what looked like blatant discrimination. Alicia remained calm, her hand resting lightly on her briefcase handle. "Are you certain you want to do this in front of so many witnesses?" she asked quietly. Ethan laughed under his breath. "Witnesses? Lady, this is a bank. We run things by the book." "Then let's check the book together," Alicia said, pulling a small black card from her wallet. She placed it face down on the counter, sliding it toward Ethan without another word. He didn't bother flipping it over. "Ma'am, we don't accept business cards as proof of anything. You need to provide actual documentation, or security will have to—" "Excuse me," Eleanor Price interrupted, moving closer despite Ethan's earlier dismissal. "Do you even realize who you're speaking to?" "Mrs. Price," Ethan snapped. "Please sit down before this escalates." But it was too late. Jacob's live stream had surged past 200 viewers. Comments flashed. "She looks important." "This manager is wild. He's digging his own grave." "Check the initials on her briefcase, AM." "Who is she?" Lindsay Hart, who had been quiet until now, leaned slightly forward, her eyes catching the small engraved silver initials on Alicia's briefcase. She blinked. Something about it felt familiar, but she couldn't place it. Ethan motioned to the security guard near the entrance. "We're done here. Please escort this woman outside if she doesn't provide the requested paperwork in the next 2 minutes." The guard hesitated. He had been at the bank long enough to know when something felt wrong, and Alicia's quiet confidence unsettled him. She wasn't flustered, wasn't defensive, just calm, like someone who didn't need to argue. Alicia's phone buzzed softly. One message flashed across her screen. "Code Black protocol ready on your signal." She smiled faintly and typed a single word. "Initiate." Outside, the sound of multiple car engines roared to life. Inside, Jacob's live stream viewer count jumped past 400, chat exploding with curiosity. "What's happening? Did she just trigger something? Who is she?" Ethan, oblivious to the rising online storm, crossed his arms smugly. "Ma'am, you have 1 minute left." Alicia looked up, meeting his eyes calmly. 1 minute is all I need." The camera phones kept rolling, and for the first time since she had stepped into her own bank, Alicia allowed herself a faint, knowing smile. The security guard stepped closer, hand resting on his belt, not in threat, but as protocol required. "Ma'am," he said, his voice neutral yet firm, "I'm going to have to ask you to leave the VIP section. Please proceed to the regular customer service line or exit the building." Alicia Monroe didn't flinch. She simply turned her head slightly, as though evaluating whether this moment was worth a response. Her fingers traced the edge of her briefcase handle before she released it and let her hands drop loosely by her sides. The quiet authority in her stance made the guard hesitate. For Alicia, humiliation in a bank lobby was nothing new. Years ago, at 19, she had walked into a small Houston credit union, clutching her first paycheck from a part-time waitress job. She wanted to open her first account and start saving for college. The man behind the counter had looked at her worn sneakers, her hair pulled back in a simple band, and the faded uniform from a diner, then smirked. "Are you sure this is the right place for you?" he'd asked, as though banking were a privilege reserved for certain appearances. When she insisted, he demanded proof of employment, a cosigner, even a letter explaining why she wanted a checking account. Humiliation burned through her back then, but she swallowed it, completed the forms, and walked out determined never to forget that sting of judgment. That moment planted the seed that would later push her into finance. It wasn't just about earning money. It was about tearing down the invisible walls people built around access and opportunity. And now, standing in the gleaming lobby of Horizon First National, a bank she had rebuilt from the top down as its CEO, she faced a situation almost identical, except this time, She had power no one in that room recognized. The security guard shifted his stance, unsure. Alicia met his eyes, then smiled gently. "Sir," she said calmly, "do what you feel you must." Her voice carried no anger, no resistance. She reached into her jacket pocket and pulled out her phone. One short message lit up on the secure executive channel. "Code Black Protocol." She pressed send. At that exact moment, Jacob Reed's live stream jumped from 400 to 750 viewers. Comments flooded the screen. "What's Code Black Protocol?" "She's way too calm. Something's up." "Yo, those are executive security codes, aren't they?" Across town, in a high-rise apartment overlooking the skyline, a man in a gray hoodie sat in front of multiple screens. He was known online only as Cypher Watcher, a popular investigative streamer who had built a reputation for exposing corporate misconduct. He had tuned in casually when Jacob's stream appeared on his trending feed. Now, his eyes narrowed. He zoomed in on the initials engraved on Alicia's briefcase. AM Cypher Watcher leaned back. "No way," he murmured to himself. On one screen, he typed a comment into the live stream. "Hey de koayin, kek ngui kombit mendang lamzido." The comment appeared instantly in Jacob's feed, sparking a storm of speculation. Who is this Cypher Watcher guy? Wait, he never comments on small streams. Is she famous or something? Back in the lobby, Ethan Cole was growing impatient. "This is ridiculous," he barked, his voice sharp enough to cut through the low hum of customer whispers. "Escort her out, now." The guard hesitated again, glancing at Alicia, then at Ethan. "Sir, maybe we should double-check client records first." "No," Ethan snapped. "Do you know how much fraud we deal with? Look at her, walking straight into VIP banking with no appointment. This is exactly why we have rules." Lindsay Hart shifted uncomfortably behind the counter. Something about Ethan's tone bothered her. It was too loud, too public. And there was that briefcase, black, expensive, clearly custom, engraved with AM. She had seen those initials before, but where? Alicia simply adjusted her sleeve and glanced at the growing circle of spectators. Several customers were now openly filming with their phones, some pretending to check messages while secretly recording. In Alicia's earpiece, a tiny wireless bud almost invisible, came a soft voice. "Dr. Monroe, executive response team is 4 minutes out." She touched her ear as if brushing away stray hair and whispered back, "Confirmed. Maintain low profile." Jacob Reed's live stream ticked past 100 viewers. Comments poured in, mixing outrage and confusion. "She's calm AF, like she's the boss or something." "Code Black? That's military or corporate security level." "Is she a Fed? Why is she smiling like that?" Cypher Watcher commented again. "Clip everything. This is about to go national." The security guard, caught in the middle of conflicting orders, looked back at Ethan. "Sir, maybe—" "Do it," Ethan interrupted. "Rules are rules." He stepped closer to Alicia. "Ma'am, this is your last warning." Alicia tilted her head slightly, almost pitying him. "You really believe you're doing the right thing, don't you?" she asked softly. Ethan sneered. "I know I am. People like you." He stopped himself, but the implication hung heavy in the air. Phones recorded every second. Jacob's viewer count surged past 2,000. The live chat went wild. "Did he just say, people like you?" "Oh, he's done." Alicia's phone buzzed again. "ETA 3 minutes." She calmly placed it face down on the counter and clasped her hands together, an expression of quiet patience on her face. To anyone watching, she looked more like someone waiting for a meeting to start than someone on the verge of being thrown out of her own bank. Then, one unexpected sound shifted the energy of the room. A single voice from behind the crowd. "Wait a minute. Isn't that—" The voice trailed off as the speaker was pulled back by the curiosity of others craning their necks. The mystery deepened, curiosity peaked, and on Jacob's screen, one comment soared to the top with hundreds of likes in seconds. "Hai de koayin, kek ngui kombit mendang lamzido." For reasons no one could explain, the entire lobby froze for half a second, as if those words carried some invisible authority. Ethan frowned, scanning the crowd. "Who said that?" he barked. Alicia didn't move. She simply allowed the faintest trace of a smile to touch her lips. Outside, the low growl of approaching engines reverberated against the glass walls. Inside, eyes darted between Alicia, the security guard, and Ethan. And somewhere across town, Cypher Watcher leaned back in his chair, muttering to himself, "This is going to be bigger than anyone expects." 5 minutes! Ethan Cole's voice cut through the polished marble lobby like a knife scraping glass. "You have 5 minutes to present documentation proving you belong here, or you'll be escorted out by security. That's policy." His tone was sharp, intentionally loud enough for everyone to hear. It wasn't about protocol anymore. It was about humiliation. Ethan stood tall, shoulders squared, with one hand resting arrogantly on the counter. Lindsay Hart froze behind him, lips pressed together, unsure if she should intervene or stay silent. Jacob Reed's phone, still running the live stream, captured everything in high definition. Viewer count jumped past 3,200, the comment section exploding. "She's probably in the wrong place, LOL. Why does she look so calm? This is racial profiling on camera. Wow. Manager's a jerk. Keep filming." The chat divided sharply into two camps. One group claimed Ethan was just doing his job. The other saw blatant discrimination unfolding in real time. The more Ethan shouted, the more polarized the audience became. 4 minutes, Ethan barked, glancing at his watch with theatrical precision. "This isn't complicated, ma'am. Either show us your eligibility or step aside for real clients who need actual service." Alicia Monroe didn't move. She stood with hands clasped loosely in front of her, head slightly tilted, her expression calm and unreadable. That serenity only infuriated Ethan further. 3 minutes, he shouted again, ignoring the whispers and camera phones raised all around him. At the far end of the lobby, Marcus Dean, the head of security, stepped forward. Marcus had worked for the bank for almost 20 years. He'd seen everything from attempted robberies to high-profile client meltdowns, but something about this situation made his gut tighten. He approached quietly, scanning Alicia for anything out of place, and then his eyes caught something. Hanging just slightly out of her wallet, tucked neatly in an inner flap of her briefcase, was a black card with a distinctive metallic stripe. Marcus squinted. He knew that design well. It was an executive parking level P1 access pass, reserved only for senior leadership and board members. He'd issued fewer than a dozen of them in his entire career. Marcus slowed his steps. Why would someone who had an executive P1 parking pass need to prove her eligibility to stand in the VIP section? Something wasn't adding up. 2 minutes, Ethan declared, raising his voice even louder, as though he were performing for the cameras now instead of the customers. The live stream chat surged again. "This guy's loving the power trip. Wait, is that an executive P1 pass? Zoom in. How does she have one of those?" Jacob, sensing the moment, angled his phone lower to capture Alicia's briefcase. Sure enough, the comments erupted. "Confirmed, that's an exec pass. No way she's a random client." Marcus approached Ethan cautiously. "Sir," he said quietly, "maybe we should check the employee handbook on this. She's got..." Ethan cut him off with a glare. "Dean, I'm running this branch, not you. Do your job and prepare to escort her out when I hit 0. That's an order." Marcus clenched his jaw but stepped back, though his eyes never left Alicia. 1 minute, Ethan's voice thundered, as if he were a drill sergeant, counting down a battlefield evacuation. Alicia finally moved, not toward the door, not toward Ethan, but toward her phone. Slowly, deliberately, she unlocked the screen with her fingerprint. For a brief second, the phone's lock screen became visible to anyone paying attention. On it glowed the executive board seal of Horizon First National Bank, crisp and unmistakable. Jacob's live stream caught it perfectly. The chat went into chaos. "Wait, she's executive board? Holy, this is bigger than I thought." This manager is dead in his career. Ethan didn't notice. He was too focused on his countdown. 30 seconds. But Marcus noticed. His eyes widened slightly. His earlier suspicion now solidified into certainty. Someone with that lock screen wasn't just an average client. They were high level. He hesitated, glancing back at the security team behind him. Should he intervene? Should he tell Ethan to stop? Meanwhile, Lindsay Hart finally spoke up, her voice shaking. Ethan, maybe we should... Quiet, Lindsay, Ethan snapped. We have rules, and I don't care how calm she looks. I'm not bending them for anyone who thinks they can waltz in here without an appointment. Alicia glanced up from her phone, her eyes locking onto Ethan's. Her voice was soft but cutting. Are you sure this is the choice you want to make, in front of all these cameras? That question made the crowd murmur louder. Jacob's viewer count skyrocketed past 5,000. People were now tagging major news outlets. One comment pinned itself to the top. If this woman is who I think she is, this is about to blow up. Ethan smirked, mistaking Alicia's question for hesitation. 10 seconds. Last chance, lady. Marcus stepped closer, lowering his voice to Alicia's level. Ma'am, he said carefully, do you work here? Alicia's lips curved in the faintest of smiles. She didn't answer Marcus directly. Instead, she raised her phone slightly, as if checking messages, ensuring the executive board logo was visible again. Jacob's camera caught it perfectly, sending the live stream into another frenzy. Confirmed! She's corporate. OMG! This guy's firing himself live. Who else is screen recording? Ethan's final words echoed through the lobby. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. But Alicia didn't move. She didn't flinch, didn't argue, didn't plead. She simply stood there, phone in hand, her thumb hovering over the screen. Outside, the faint sound of engines approaching grew louder, but inside, the silence was deafening. The last thing viewers saw before Jacob's phone glitched under the flood of new comments was Alicia tapping her phone screen, sending a message only she could see. The words burned bright for a fraction of a second. Code Black protocol in effect. Lindsay Hart had worked at Horizon First National Bank for barely 2 years, but she had already learned the unspoken rule. Do not question Ethan Cole, ever. He ran the branch like a miniature kingdom, and he treated any customer who didn't look like old money as a potential problem. Normally, Lindsay kept her head down and followed orders. But today felt different. Wrong, in a way that gnawed at her gut. She couldn't stop looking at the woman standing so calmly in front of the counter. Alicia Monroe wasn't panicking, wasn't raising her voice, wasn't fumbling through excuses like most people confronted by Ethan's humiliation routine. She stood there as if she were the one in control. Her eyes quiet but piercing. The kind of look people gave when they knew something no one else in the room understood. Lindsay's gaze drifted to the black briefcase resting on the marble counter. Earlier, she had noticed the engraved silver initials, AM. Now, with the way this mysterious woman carried herself, those initials nagged at her. Slowly, cautiously, she leaned forward, pretending to organize some papers just to steal another look. A sliver of a card peeked out from an inside pocket of the briefcase. Lindsay froze. Embossed in silver letters were the words, A. Monroe, CEO access only. Her breath caught. CEO? That couldn't be right. There was no way. Lindsay quickly glanced around to see if anyone else had noticed. Ethan hadn't. He was too busy smirking at the crowd and pretending to be the hero of fraud prevention. Marcus Dean, the head of security, looked troubled, but he hadn't seen the card. Lindsay's eyes darted back to Alicia. If this was real, if this woman was who that card said she was, then Ethan was humiliating their own CEO in front of dozens of witnesses and thousands of live stream viewers. The live stream chat reflected exactly what Lindsay was feeling. Yo, I saw that too. CEO pass? Wait, no way. That would mean... Holy! He's dead in his career. Alicia's demeanor didn't change. She placed her phone face down, folded her hands neatly on the counter, and simply waited. That calmness was no accident. It was calculated, deliberate, the way a chess master lets an opponent overextend their queen before springing the trap. Lindsay's mind spun. Should she say something? Warn Ethan? Or stay quiet and see how it played out? Her career flashed before her eyes. Keep silent and maybe avoid trouble. But if Alicia really was the CEO, staying silent might be the biggest mistake of her life. Outside the bank, faint sounds of approaching engines grew louder. At first, Lindsay assumed it was just traffic, but then she noticed something strange. The engines didn't fade. They grew sharper, synchronized, like multiple vehicles moving together. Inside, Ethan kept posturing, oblivious. "You see, folks," he announced to the growing crowd, "this is why we have strict protocols. People think they can just walk in and demand VIP treatment. Not on my watch. 30 more seconds, and security will escort this lady outside." The live stream chat erupted again. "This guy's playing himself in 4K. I heard black SUVs. That's executive transport. Something big is coming. I can feel it." Lindsay's eyes went back to Alicia, who was now slightly turned toward Marcus Dean, the security chief. Marcus, still uneasy, cleared his throat. "Ma'am, if you don't mind me asking, that parking pass you have, is that what I think it is?" Alicia's eyes flicked toward him, calm but firm. "It's exactly what you think it is," she said quietly, just loud enough for Marcus to hear. Marcus stiffened. He'd been with the bank long enough to know what an executive P1 pass meant. Only board members and C-suite executives had them. That's when it hit him. He had seen Alicia before, though only in official photos circulated in internal newsletters. Dr. Alicia Monroe, CEO of Horizon First National Bank. He looked at Ethan, who was still counting down like a drill sergeant. 10 seconds, Ethan barked, still performing for the cameras. Marcus took a step toward Ethan. "Sir, maybe we should—" "Dean, stand down," Ethan snapped. "Do your job or I'll have you written up. I'm not repeating myself." The live stream chat's energy spiked. "He's about to fire himself. Someone tell him she's the CEO already. This is going to make national news." Lindsay felt her heart racing. She looked again at the CEO card. She couldn't stay silent anymore. "Ethan," she said, voice trembling slightly, "maybe we need to double-check something. I think—" "Quiet, Lindsay!" Ethan barked without even looking at her. "Security, let's move!" But Marcus didn't move. Instead, his eyes stayed locked on Alicia, as if silently asking, "Is it true?" Alicia gave him a small nod. That was enough. Marcus subtly signaled the other guards to hold their positions. Outside, the engines were no longer faint. They were loud, powerful, and drawing closer. People in the lobby turned their heads toward the massive glass doors at the front of the building. Jacob Reed's live stream camera panned shakily to capture it. 5 sleek black SUVs barreling toward the entrance, moving with military-like precision. The chat exploded. "Who the hell arrives like that? Bro, that's government or CEO-level security. Ethan's finished. Done. Kaput." Alicia remained still, hands folded, eyes focused only on Ethan. "Your time is up," she said softly. The doors of the bank swung open as the first SUV screeched to a halt. Black-clad individuals stepped out, their movements efficient, coordinated, and purposeful. Ethan finally turned, eyes widening slightly at the sight, but still clinging to bravado. "Who are they? Some customers?" he asked, trying to laugh it off. But his laugh faltered halfway. Lindsay whispered under her breath, "Oh my God, she really is the CEO." Alicia stood silently, watching as the lobby filled with a sudden, commanding presence from outside. The air shifted. Whatever was about to happen, it was clear to everyone watching, both in the room and on thousands of screens across the internet, that this was no ordinary client, no ordinary situation. The live stream's viewer count passed 12,000. Someone typed in all caps, "Everyone screen record this, history is happening." And at that moment, with a single glance at her phone, Alicia whispered a command only she could hear. "Proceed." The black SUV's doors slammed shut behind their passengers, and the lobby went silent, waiting for what came next. The doors to Horizon First National's grand lobby swung wide, and 3 sharply dressed individuals strode in with purposeful steps. Their black suits were tailored, their briefcases identical, and each bore the bank's insignia in silver. One held a tablet already recording, another clutched a thick compliance binder, and the third wore an earpiece linked directly to headquarters. "Legal and Compliance Division," the tallest one announced, flashing a badge at the stunned receptionist. "Dr. Monroe, we're here per Code Black activation." Every head in the room turned to Alicia Monroe. Until now, she had been silent, still, almost invisible despite the swirl of tension. But at the sound of her name, murmurs rippled through the crowd. Did he say Dr. Monroe? Ethan Cole stiffened but quickly regained his voice. "Hold on," he barked, moving in front of Alicia as if to shield the others from her. "This woman isn't who you think she is. She walked in here without an appointment, demanded VIP services, and refused to show proper documents. I believe we're dealing with an impersonator trying to commit fraud." The lead attorney, Maria Jensen, raised one brow. "An impersonator?" "That's right," Ethan said confidently, though sweat had begun to form at his temples. "Look, she even has a fake access pass. Anyone can make one of those online these days." The compliance officer, James Park, exchanged a quick glance with Maria. "Sir, did you just claim Dr. Monroe's executive P1 pass is fake?" "Dr. what?" Ethan scoffed. "Listen, I don't know who you think she is, but..." Alicia finally moved. Calmly, deliberately, she reached into her briefcase and withdrew a single embossed business card. She placed it on the marble counter with 2 fingers, sliding it directly toward Ethan. He barely looked at it. "Like I said, cards don't mean... read it," Alicia interrupted, her voice soft but edged with steel. Ethan frowned, picked up the card, and read aloud. "Dr. Alicia Monroe, Chief Executive Officer, Horizon First National Bank." For a full 2 seconds, the entire lobby was silent except for the faint hum of the building's air circulation. Phones paused mid-air. Customers froze. Lindsay Hart's jaw went slack, and Marcus Dean blinked hard, finally understanding why her demeanor had seemed so unshakable. Ethan's hand trembled slightly as he set the card back on the counter. This must be some kind of mistake," he stammered, trying to laugh but failing. She can't be. She is," Maria Jensen said flatly, pulling up an internal database photo on her tablet. She angled it toward the room. There was Alicia Monroe. Same hair, same eyes, same black briefcase, under the title CEO. The live stream erupted. "Bro, she's the CEO. I told y'all, she was calm for a reason. This manager just ended his career on camera." Ethan stepped back, pale now. I didn't know," he muttered. "That's clear," Alicia replied evenly. She didn't raise her voice, didn't gloat. She didn't need to. Her calmness was sharper than any anger. "You judged me without listening, humiliated me in front of customers, and attempted to remove me from my own bank." Lindsay, still reeling, whispered, "Oh my God." Maria Jensen turned to Ethan. "Mr. Cole, as of now, you are relieved of operational duties pending review by HR and executive legal. Marcus, please escort him to the compliance room." Marcus hesitated for half a second, then nodded. "Yes, ma'am." He stepped forward, but Ethan jerked away. "You're making a mistake," Ethan shouted. "This is some sort of setup. She walked in like she owned the place because she pretended she did. There's no way she's..." "She doesn't have to pretend," James Park interrupted, his tone cold. "She does own this place, at least in authority. CEO." The live stream chat surged past 25,000 viewers. "He still doesn't believe it, Lau. This is better than Netflix. Someone clip this for court." Alicia finally picked up her card again, sliding it back into her briefcase with a soft click. She looked directly at Ethan, her expression unreadable. "In my position," she said quietly, "I'm expected to give people second chances. But you didn't offer me even one chance to speak before deciding who I was." For the first time since the confrontation began, Ethan had no words. His mouth opened, then closed again. His face flushed a deep red. Outside, the black SUVs waited silently like a wall of authority. Inside, an equally silent crowd held its collective breath. Jacob Reed, still streaming, zoomed in on Alicia's badge now clipped to her lapel. CEO, Horizon First National Bank. The comments came in faster than he could read. Confirmed, she's legit. He's trending on Twitter right now. Ethan Cole. Wait, what? Someone said Ethan has a lawsuit history? That last comment flew by so fast, Jacob nearly missed it. He scrolled back, heart pounding. Another user had dropped a link to a local news article from 3 years ago. Branch manager Ethan Cole sued for discrimination. Case settled out of court. Wait, what is this? Jacob whispered to his phone. His audience answered for him. Yep, that's him. He's got a history of racial bias complaints. No wonder he jumped to conclusions. They covered it up, bro. Settlement sealed. Within seconds, screenshots of the article flooded the chat. Ethan's face wasn't just trending for humiliating his CEO. It was now linked to a buried scandal long forgotten by the public. In the center of it all, Alicia stood still, letting the silence stretch. She didn't gloat. She didn't even look at Ethan again. Instead, she turned to Marcus Dean and said, "Please prepare a conference room. We'll handle the rest formally." Marcus nodded firmly. "Yes, Dr. Monroe." As Ethan was quietly escorted out, the weight of the moment settled over the lobby. The once divided live stream audience was now united, at least in their judgment of Ethan Cole. The screen on Jacob's phone froze for a second as notifications poured in. Retweets, tags, shares. The incident was no longer just a live stream curiosity. It was about to go national. And as Alicia walked toward the elevators, the chat pinned one final chilling comment from a viewer nobody recognized. "This isn't Ethan Cole's first time. Watch what comes next." The conference room on the 48th floor of Horizon First National's headquarters was unlike any other space in the building. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed the Houston skyline glittering under the late afternoon sun. A long mahogany table stretched the length of the room, with 12 leather chairs occupied by the bank's most powerful figures, the board of directors. The room buzzed with tension. The live stream footage from the lobby incident had already gone viral, and news outlets were picking it up faster than PR could react. The once private humiliation of a CEO had become a national spectacle. At the head of the table sat David Sterling, chairman of the board. His silver hair was meticulously combed, his expression unreadable. "Dr. Monroe," he said formally as Alicia entered the room, "thank you for joining us on such short notice." Alicia took her seat at the opposite end of the table, placing her briefcase on the polished wood with deliberate care. "This was not an accident, Mr. Sterling," she said evenly. "We were always going to have this meeting. I simply didn't expect it to happen today." Murmurs rippled through the board members. Sterling cleared his throat. "Let's address the immediate crisis first. The live stream of today's incident has surpassed 1 million views, and Ethan Cole is trending on 3 platforms. We need to contain the reputational damage." Before Alicia could respond, another voice cut in, sharp, confident. "With respect, Chairman, I propose we suspend Dr. Monroe's authority over this matter temporarily until we conduct an internal review." The voice belonged to Richard Caldwell, one of the longest-serving board members and chair of the Audit and Risk Committee. Caldwell was known for his political maneuvering inside the boardroom, always siding with the strongest power play. Today, his eyes were fixed on Alicia with something between suspicion and hostility. "You want to suspend me?" Alicia asked calmly, arching one eyebrow. "Not suspend you personally," Caldwell said, holding up his hands in a faux gesture of reassurance. "Just your decision-making power over disciplinary actions until we review the facts. After all, the live stream is one perspective." Several heads nodded nervously, including a junior board member who clearly didn't want to pick a side. Maria Jensen, the legal counsel who had accompanied Alicia earlier, bristled. "With respect, Mr. Caldwell, the facts are clear. The CEO was humiliated and forcibly threatened with removal from her own bank. That's not a perspective. It's on video. Caldwell smiled thinly. I'm aware, Ms. Jensen, but Ethan Cole has been a high performer. He brought in significant clients over the past 3 years. We can't allow one incident, however unfortunate, to destroy morale in middle management. Alicia studied Caldwell for a long moment, then leaned back slightly in her chair. It's interesting, Richard. You seem unusually concerned for one branch manager. Caldwell shrugged. Good people make mistakes. Good people? Alicia repeated softly. In that moment, Marcus Dean entered, whispering something into Maria Jensen's ear. She frowned, tapped on her tablet, and pulled up an internal file. Dr. Monroe, she said, you should see this. Alicia nodded, and Maria projected the document onto the large screen at the end of the room. It was a transaction log linking Ethan Cole's branch performance bonuses to a discretionary fund, one overseen by none other than Richard Caldwell. The room went quiet. Care to explain this, Richard? Sterling asked, his voice sharp now. Caldwell straightened his tie. That's an authorized incentive program, entirely above board. Maria zoomed in on several flagged notes. Except the incentive fund bypassed HR and compliance sign-off 3 times, and 2 of those instances directly followed discrimination complaints filed against Ethan Cole. Whispers spread around the table. Caldwell's face flushed, but he still smiled thinly. You're reading too much into this. Ethan was effective, that's all. Sometimes effectiveness gets misunderstood. Alicia closed her briefcase and stood slowly. No, Richard. Effectiveness doesn't explain why you personally intervened to have complaints sealed, or why settlement money was funneled through a discretionary fund instead of legal reserves. That explains protectionism. For the first time, Caldwell's expression faltered. You don't have proof of wrongdoing. Alicia tapped her phone. The lights dimmed slightly as the projector displayed another file. An internal email thread between Caldwell and Ethan. The subject line read, "Handle it quietly." The content was damning. Make sure this one doesn't escalate to HR. I'll take care of the board if it comes up. Focus on numbers, not noise. Gasps erupted around the table. Even Sterling looked unsettled. Richard, is this authentic? Caldwell swallowed. This is out of context. No, Alicia said softly. It's exactly in context. Ethan humiliated a client, me, because he felt untouchable. He felt untouchable because you made him untouchable. For a moment, silence hung like a thick fog. Alicia could feel the weight of the room shift. Caldwell had been exposed, but he wasn't finished. This is politics, Alicia, Caldwell said, his voice sharpening. You're new to this level of leadership. You don't understand how fragile reputation can be. Suspend Ethan and you'll have middle management panicking. Investors don't like panic. He leaned back, smirking slightly as if he still held an ace card. Be careful. One wrong step, and this becomes bigger than you can control. The boardroom fell quiet again, everyone waiting to see Alicia's reaction. And then she smiled, slow, deliberate, the kind of smile that carried more weight than shouting ever could. Richard, she said calmly, I've been preparing for this conversation for 6 months. The entire table froze. What does that mean? Sterling asked. It means, Alicia said, gathering her documents, that while Ethan was busy humiliating clients and you were busy protecting him, I was busy auditing every branch culture metric in this company. Today wasn't a surprise. It was confirmation. Her eyes met Caldwell's, sharp and unwavering. You thought you were protecting your power. What you were really doing was giving me the evidence I needed to dismantle it. Outside the windows, the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the table as the board members exchanged uneasy looks. For a fleeting second, Caldwell looked genuinely afraid. Alicia closed her briefcase with a soft click. This meeting isn't over, she said, stepping toward the door. But your version of this company is. Alicia Monroe stood at the head of the emergency session, looking over the board members who had been buzzing since her last words in the boardroom. Unlike the chaos in the lobby earlier, here there was an eerie silence. It was the silence that precedes storms. She placed her black briefcase on the table and opened it carefully, producing a slim tablet and a set of hard copy folders. 6 months ago, she began, her voice calm yet filled with restrained steel. I approved an internal project to monitor discriminatory practices across every branch of Horizon First National. We didn't publicize it. We didn't even give it a name, because I wanted real, unfiltered data. The tablet screen illuminated, casting a blue glow across the room. A dashboard appeared, covered in charts and timelines. We tracked customer complaints flagged as potential discrimination, recorded frontline response times, and logged escalation chains. That system, she said, gesturing to the data, is why I knew exactly what was happening before I even walked into that lobby today. Several board members leaned forward. These are real? One asked skeptically. They're not just real, Alicia replied. They're time-stamped, verified, and cross-checked with recorded calls and branch performance reports. The screen changed, revealing a map of Texas. Red pins dotted the state, branch offices with elevated discrimination complaints. One branch, however, glowed a deep crimson, Ethan Cole's. In 6 months, Alicia continued, this branch generated 34 discrimination-related complaints, double the average of any other branch. 18 involved African American clients, 7 involved Hispanic clients, and 9 involved women requesting business loans. Richard Caldwell shifted in his seat, but Alicia ignored him. She tapped the screen again, and a new report appeared. Performance Incentive Manipulations. You'll notice how complaints spike during quarters when discretionary bonuses are awarded, she said. And who approved these bonuses? Mr. Caldwell. The room murmured, eyes darting toward Caldwell. His jaw tightened. You're making it sound like I endorsed discrimination, Alicia. That's outrageous. You protected Ethan Cole, Alicia corrected, her tone sharp. You protected him knowing this pattern existed. At that moment, an unexpected voice broke through the tension. She's telling the truth. Everyone turned. Lindsay Hart, the teller who had first dismissed Alicia in the lobby, stood at the back of the room, clutching a small audio recorder. She looked pale, but resolute. I know I don't have the right to speak here, but I can't stay silent anymore. David Sterling frowned. Ms. Hart, you're not a board member. Why are you here? Marcus Dean stepped in. She requested access to this session. Given what happened today, I thought it might be relevant. Alicia looked at Lindsay and gave her a small nod. Go ahead, Ms. Hart. Lindsay stepped forward, placing the recorder on the table. She pressed play. Ethan Cole's voice filled the room. If someone looks like they don't belong, make them prove they do. If they don't like it, they can take their business elsewhere. We want quality clients, not charity cases. A hush fell over the room. Lindsay's voice trembled slightly, but her words were steady. That recording was from 2 months ago. I didn't say anything because I was afraid. Ethan controls schedules, promotions, everything, but after today, after what I saw, I can't be a part of it anymore. Alicia's eyes softened slightly. You made the right choice today. David Sterling turned to Maria Jensen, legal counsel. Maria, does this meet the threshold for immediate suspension? Maria nodded firmly. Absolutely. Not just suspension, termination pending investigation. Sterling's gavel came down on the table. Effective immediately. Ethan Cole is suspended from all duties. The live stream had not been invited to this private session, but news had already leaked. Jacob Reed's original footage had reached national outlets, and word of Lindsay's testimony began trending within minutes. Employee flips, exposes manager bias. Whistleblower surfaces in Horizon Bank scandal. The boardroom door opened, and 2 members of security stepped in to escort Ethan, who had been sitting in stunned silence until now. His face was pale, but his eyes burned with rage. He stood abruptly, pointing a finger at Alicia. You think this is over? You humiliated me in front of the whole world. You'll pay for this, Alicia. You'll pay. The guards flanked him, guiding him toward the door. But Ethan kept his eyes locked on her, venom dripping from every syllable. This isn't the end. You hear me? Alicia didn't flinch. She simply looked at him with that same calm, unreadable expression she had held since the very beginning. "Goodbye, Ethan," she said softly. As the doors closed behind him, the room exhaled collectively, the tension breaking like glass under pressure. Richard Caldwell cleared his throat, trying to salvage some dignity. "Perhaps we should reconsider how quickly we're moving here. There are reputational risks to these kinds of dramatic actions." Alicia turned her gaze on him. "Richard, reputational risk didn't begin today. It began the moment people like you decided protecting numbers was more important than protecting people. And I have no intention of letting that culture continue." For the first time since the start of this entire ordeal, Alicia allowed herself a genuine smile. Not triumphant, not mocking, but deeply certain. "You see," she said, packing up her tablet, "I didn't just stumble into this confrontation. I've been preparing for it for 6 months." The board sat in silence as Alicia walked toward the window, staring out at the skyline. Her reflection glimmered faintly in the glass, a CEO who had just shifted the entire power structure of her company. But outside, in an empty corridor, Ethan Cole's angry voice echoed faintly as he was escorted to a waiting elevator. "She will pay for this. Mark my words, she will pay." The next morning, Horizon First National's headquarters felt like a fortress under siege. Not from protesters or regulators, but from media vans and satellite trucks parked along the entire street. Cameras flashed as journalists crowded near the building's steps, shouting questions to anyone wearing a badge or carrying a briefcase. On social media, the story had exploded overnight. Jacob Reed's original live stream had surpassed 8 million views in 12 hours, and a hashtag born from a single comment, #BankingBias, rocketed to the #1 trending topic nationwide. Cable news segments played the moment Ethan Cole counted down 5 minutes to leave in an endless loop, paired with split screens showing Alicia's silent, unshaken demeanor. Opinion hosts debated whether the incident revealed systemic discrimination in finance or was an isolated power trip by one manager. Inside the executive boardroom, Alicia Monroe stood by the large windows, watching the media frenzy from above. Maria Jensen and Marcus Dean flanked her, both visibly tense. "This is bigger than we expected," Marcus said quietly. "Every outlet wants an interview. Half the questions aren't even about the incident. They're about whether Horizon discriminates as an institution." Alicia's expression didn't change. "Good," she said calmly. "It means people are paying attention. Change never starts quietly." But before she could say more, David Sterling, the board chairman, entered the room looking pale. "Alicia, we have an urgent matter," he said, sliding into a seat. "The shareholder bloc led by Crest Capital just sent a formal demand." Alicia turned slowly. "What kind of demand?" Sterling sighed. "They're requesting you be temporarily suspended as CEO while we conduct an independent review of the incident. They claim it's to protect the bank's reputation and stabilize investor confidence." Maria Jensen slammed her tablet shut. "That's absurd. She was the victim of discrimination in her own bank." Sterling held up his hands. "I agree. But Crest Capital controls 12% of our voting shares, and they've rallied 3 other blocks. In total, that's nearly 30% of shareholder power threatening to call an extraordinary session unless we comply." Marcus frowned. So, after everything Ethan did, after exposing Caldwell, after Lindsay risked her career to speak up, they want to punish the CEO who fixed the problem? Sterling didn't answer, which said everything. Alicia, however, showed no visible anger. She simply walked to the table, placing her hands on the smooth wood surface. "So they want to remove me temporarily for doing my job?" she asked, voice even. Sterling nodded. "They say this isn't about you personally, Alicia, but about mitigating reputational risk. Their words, not mine." The room fell silent. Even Maria looked worried now. "If this goes through, Alicia," she said, "you could lose authority over your own reform plan. They'll stall everything and bury today's progress under bureaucracy." For the first time, Alicia smiled. Not mockingly, not out of disbelief, but as if she had been expecting this moment. She reached into her briefcase and pulled out a sealed envelope, its flap marked with the official insignia of the United States Department of the Treasury. "What's that?" Marcus asked, his eyes narrowing. Alicia placed the envelope on the table and slid it toward Sterling. 6 months ago, when I began quietly auditing our culture metrics, I anticipated pushback from people protecting the old system. I reached out to the Treasury's Office of Financial Equity. Sterling opened the envelope carefully and unfolded the document inside. As his eyes scanned the page, his mouth parted slightly in shock. "This," he stammered, "this is a special authorization under the Community Financial Accountability Act. It gives you unilateral authority to implement internal equity reforms for 12 months, without board or shareholder pre-approval." Maria blinked. "That's basically a temporary emergency power, Alicia. How did you even get this?" Alicia straightened her jacket. "By making the case that our industry doesn't just have a revenue problem, it has an equity problem, and that Horizon First National would either lead the way or become the poster child for resistance." Sterling set the letter down slowly. "So even if Crest Capital calls their extraordinary session, they can't override it," Alicia finished for him. "Not legally, not until the 12-month authorization expires." The silence that followed was thick, but this time not with dread. Rather, with a stunned sort of awe. Maria let out a short laugh, shaking her head. "You anticipated this exact move?" Alicia nodded slightly. "You don't prepare for war after the first shot, Maria. You prepare knowing someone will eventually fire it." Marcus grinned for the first time that day. "Ma'am, remind me never to play chess with you." But outside the boardroom, the narrative had already begun to shift. News tickers displayed, "Shareholders push for CEO suspension amid bias scandal." Commentators speculated that Alicia's leadership might be at risk despite being the victim. Social media reflected the anxiety. Wait, why are they punishing her? Classic move. Silence the one who exposed the problem. If she gets suspended, this whole thing was for nothing. The stock price dipped slightly, feeding the sense of unease. For every supporter praising Alicia's calm defiance, there was another user warning that banks rarely survive public battles between CEOs and shareholders. And yet, Alicia's smile didn't fade. She tapped the Treasury letter with one manicured finger. "I'm not here to play defense anymore," she said softly. "I'm here to rebuild this bank's culture from the ground up, and I'm done asking for permission." Sterling exhaled, visibly relieved. "Then what's our next move?" Alicia glanced at Marcus. "Call a press conference for 8 a.m. tomorrow. We're going public. Not just about what happened in the lobby, but about our next 12 months. Maria raised an eyebrow. "Are you sure? The shareholders will double down when they hear this." "They already fired their shot," Alicia replied. "Now it's our turn." Outside, the media lights continued to flash, capturing a narrative most people thought they understood. Inside, Alicia Monroe had just revealed a card no one knew she was holding. A card powerful enough to shift the entire game. But in a corner of the internet, one anonymous account posted a cryptic message under the #BankingBias thread. "Emergency power or not, she's painting a target on her own back." The following morning, the press conference room at Horizon First National's headquarters was at capacity. Reporters from every major network crowded around the podium, lights flashing, cameras rolling, microphones stacked in a messy bouquet. The buzz in the room was deafening as the clock ticked toward 8 o'clock a.m. But for Alicia Monroe, standing quietly in the wings, the noise faded into memory. Her eyes unfocused for a moment, drifting back 20 years to a day that looked painfully similar. She had been 19, fresh out of high school, clutching an envelope of documents for a small student loan. She had a part-time job bussing tables, a decent credit score for someone her age, and a dream of studying finance at the University of Houston. But the bank teller that day, at a different bank across town, looked her up and down with thinly veiled disdain. "Sorry," he had said dismissively, sliding her application back. "You don't meet our lending criteria. Try a credit union or something, more in your range." Humiliation had burned her cheeks, but what hurt worse was the laughter of a man waiting in line behind her. She walked out that day with tears she swore no one would ever see, promising herself she would one day learn everything about finance, not to make money, but to break down the doors that had been slammed in her face. That promise had carried her through night classes, grueling internships, and eventually her rise as one of the youngest CEOs in the banking industry. And now, decades later, she found herself back in Houston, in a bank, once again judged by appearance instead of merit. Only this time, she wasn't the one being turned away. She was the one redefining the rules. "Dr. Monroe, we're ready," Maria Jensen whispered, bringing her back to the present. Alicia nodded and stepped onto the stage to a frenzy of flashes. The crowd quieted quickly, sensing the weight of the moment. She began to speak, her voice steady, yet carrying an undertone of deeply personal emotion. What happened 2 days ago in our flagship branch was not just an isolated incident. It was the culmination of silent prejudices and unchecked behavior that I have sworn to root out of this institution. Her speech detailed the reforms already underway, the special Treasury authorization allowing unilateral changes, and the launch of a community oversight council. But halfway through, she paused, scanning the audience. "Before I continue," she said softly, "there's someone here I need to acknowledge." From the front row, an elderly woman stood slowly, her cane tapping softly against the polished floor. Eleanor Price, the same woman who had defended Alicia in the bank lobby during Ethan's countdown, smiled warmly. "Mrs. Price," Alicia said, her voice thickening slightly, "you probably don't remember me, but I remember you. 19 years ago, at a small bank in Houston, I was denied a small student loan. I walked out embarrassed, believing I had no one to turn to, until you, a stranger then, stopped me on the sidewalk. You gave me $20 and told me, 'Don't let this be the day you quit.' That day changed everything for me." The crowd erupted in a wave of murmurs, camera shutters clicking faster. Eleanor's eyes welled up as she steadied herself on the cane. "I remember, child," she said, her voice trembling but strong. "And seeing what you've done now, I'd give you those $20 all over again." The room fell silent, and then applause broke out. Not polite, not staged, but human and raw. Journalists, security personnel, even board members felt the weight of the connection between past and present. Social media exploded as clips of the moment hit live feeds. "The woman who inspired the CEO returns 20 years later. I'm crying. This is the redemption arc of a lifetime. Hashtag full circle trending now." Alicia placed a hand over her heart and smiled at Eleanor. "You were my first investor," she said softly, drawing warm laughter and even more applause. But as the emotional high peaked, reality reminded everyone that this was still a battlefield. Marcus Dean stepped onto the stage, whispering urgently in Alicia's ear. She stiffened slightly, then faced the cameras once more. "Before we close," she said, "I need to inform the public of something critical." Marcus took over, his voice firm. Yesterday evening, additional evidence surfaced linking Ethan Cole, the former branch manager involved in the initial incident, to internal financial misconduct. As of this morning, Houston Police Department's Financial Crimes Unit has issued a summons for Mr. Cole to appear for questioning regarding potential bonus manipulation and fraudulent loan approvals. The room gasped, journalists nearly tripping over themselves to shout questions. Alicia raised a hand, silencing the chaos. "Justice," she said, "is not about punishment. It's about accountability. We will fully cooperate with authorities to ensure transparency and integrity." In the back of the room, a reporter whispered to another, "She's burying him with receipts." The live stream comments reflected a surge of mixed shock and satisfaction. This keeps getting wilder. First bias, now fraud. Ethan's cooked. That CEO is untouchable. Respect. But amid the whirlwind of applause and flashbulbs, one thought lingered in Alicia's mind. Ethan's final words before being escorted out. "You'll pay for this." Somewhere in Houston, Ethan Cole was already on the phone, his voice low and venomous. "You think you've won, Alicia? This isn't over, not even close. The boardroom was packed again, but this time there was no tension, only anticipation. Reporters, community leaders, and key bank employees waited as Alicia Monroe stepped to the podium. The weight of the past 48 hours had transformed from chaos to opportunity, and now everyone wanted to see how Horizon First National would move forward. Alicia paused for a moment, looking at the diverse audience in front of her. 2 days ago, she began, we faced a moment that revealed the cracks not only in one branch, but in the culture of banking itself. Those cracks, she continued, her voice firm, will now become the foundation for change. The large screen behind her lit up with a logo, Equity Banking Initiative. This initiative, Alicia explained, will do 3 things. First, we are launching an application called Equity Line, allowing any customer or employee to report discriminatory behavior directly to my office, bypassing local management entirely. Reports will be anonymized to protect users from retaliation. Second, we are allocating $50 million to a community support fund that will provide mentorship and financial assistance to underbanked communities, women-owned businesses, and minority entrepreneurs. And third, we are embedding an equity compliance division within every branch, whose job is to ensure that every client, regardless of race, gender, or financial status, is treated with dignity. The crowd murmured in excitement. Social media lit up almost instantly with hashtags. Equity Banking, #New Era Finance, #Alicia Monroe. But Alicia wasn't finished. Some of you might wonder what happens to those who failed to meet this standard in the past. Accountability must always walk hand in hand with reform. That is why, effective today, she paused for dramatic emphasis. Ethan Cole is permanently barred from holding any financial services position for the next 5 years by order of the state's Financial Conduct Oversight Commission. Reporters erupted in questions, but Alicia held up her hand, silencing them. Additionally, the shareholder bloc that pressured for my removal has lost their own representation on this board. Their lead representative has tendered his resignation effective immediately. Let this serve as a clear statement. Horizon First National will not protect power at the expense of justice. The audience broke into spontaneous applause, but Alicia raised one finger, motioning for silence. There is one more decision I must announce. Many of you witnessed how a young teller, Lindsay Hart, treated me with bias in the lobby. She has publicly admitted her fault, risked her career to testify against Ethan Cole, and provided key evidence that confirmed a systemic issue. Traditionally, such an employee might face termination. Instead, Alicia gestured toward the side entrance. Lindsay Hart will now serve as Horizon's first Equity Service Coordinator. Gasps filled the room, followed by another wave of applause. Lindsay, visibly emotional, stepped forward, eyes brimming with tears. Dr. Monroe, she began, her voice breaking. I don't deserve this chance. Alicia smiled gently. None of us are perfect, Lindsay. What matters is the courage to change. You chose truth over silence, and that's the culture we are building here. The cameras captured every moment, live stream chat exploding. This is leadership. She just turned a mistake into a second chance. Respect. That teller's life just changed forever. Reporters immediately turned to Lindsay for comments, but she simply shook her head, whispering, "Thank you, Dr. Monroe," before stepping aside, overwhelmed. Alicia continued, her voice ringing with conviction. The Equity Banking Initiative is not just about Horizon. We are sharing this framework freely with any financial institution willing to adopt it. Change doesn't belong to one bank. It belongs to everyone who believes in fairness. Her words struck deep, and for the first time in decades, banking, often seen as cold and impersonal, suddenly felt human, relatable, and capable of redemption. In a corner of the room, Eleanor Price dabbed her eyes with a handkerchief, whispering to a nearby reporter, "That's the girl I gave $20 to. I told her not to quit, and look at her now." Social media surged again, this time with side-by-side photos. One of young Alicia standing outside a bank with rejection papers in hand, and one of her now standing as CEO announcing sweeping reforms. The caption read, "From denied to defining the future." But amid the celebrations, a new development flashed across phone screens. Ethan Cole leaves police station after 8 hours of questioning. Financial misconduct probe expands to multiple branches. Reporters shouted questions. "Dr. Monroe, do you have a statement on Ethan Cole's legal troubles?" Alicia's expression didn't change. "I'll say only this. We are fully cooperating with law enforcement. No one is above accountability, not even those who once thought they were untouchable." The room erupted again in applause. As the press conference ended, Alicia stepped away from the podium, Lindsay following her closely, still visibly stunned by her new role. "You really mean it?" Lindsay whispered. "You trust me to do this?" Alicia looked at her directly. "I don't just trust you. I'm betting on you. If you can change, others can too. And that's exactly the kind of story this industry needs right now." Lindsay nodded, wiping her tears. "I won't let you down." Outside, the crowd cheered as Alicia exited the building. But in the back of her mind, one thought remained. Reform was just beginning, and enemies often fought hardest when cornered. On a television screen across town, Ethan Cole watched the press conference replay, jaw clenched, eyes cold. 5 years? He muttered bitterly. "She thinks this ends me? She has no idea what's coming." 2 weeks after the Equity Banking Initiative launch, the headquarters of Horizon First National was quieter but carried a new kind of energy. Employees walked with purpose. Customers entered with confidence. And for the first time in years, social media buzzed with praise instead of complaints. Alicia Monroe stood at the window of her 48th floor office, gazing over the Houston skyline. It had been a whirlwind. Ethan Cole banned from the financial industry for 5 years. The shareholder block's influence dismantled. And Lindsay Hart transforming from a teller marked by bias into the bank's first equity service coordinator. But change didn't stop at the bank's walls. "Dr. Monroe," Maria Jensen said, stepping into the office with an envelope marked Federal Financial Policy Council. "It's official. They want you in Washington next month as a senior advisor on financial equity policy." Alicia opened the letter carefully, her eyes scanning the formal invitation. It wasn't just a recognition of her leadership. It was an acknowledgement that her work had national implications. She smiled faintly. "They're ready to talk about equity at the national level. That's bigger than I expected." Maria grinned. "You've been trending for days. People are calling you the reformer CEO. Congress wants to leverage your model for banking equity nationwide." Alicia set the letter down. "This isn't about me. It's about proving fairness isn't just moral. It's profitable, sustainable, and essential for trust." Just as Maria began to respond, Marcus Dean rushed in, his face tense. "Dr. Monroe, you need to see this." He handed her a tablet showing a headline from a major financial news outlet. "Equity banking, a Trojan horse for political agendas. Anonymous source claims Horizon's initiative will destroy free markets." Alicia's brow furrowed. "Where's this coming from?" Marcus tapped the screen. "A competitor, Apex Union Bank. Their media contacts are planting doubt, suggesting your initiative is a covert lobbying effort to overregulate banks." Maria frowned. "That's absurd. Your program is voluntary and internal. But the public doesn't always care about details. They care about headlines." The story had already gained traction, with hashtags like "Stop Equity Banking" appearing alongside trolls accusing Alicia of weaponizing social justice. Lindsay Hart entered just as the conversation grew heavier. "It's spreading fast," she said, holding her phone. "Some clients are worried we'll start rejecting accounts for political reasons. It's completely backwards, but they're scared." Alicia sat down, folding her hands calmly. "We knew something like this might happen. The bigger the change, the stronger the resistance." Maria slammed the table lightly. We can crush this with a counter-campaign, release our full financials, prove no regulatory ties. No, Alicia interrupted softly. Everyone turned to look at her. We're not going to react like they expect us to, she said. If we fight their narrative directly, we give it oxygen. Instead, we lead. We keep doing what we promised, treating every customer with dignity, funding communities and building trust brick by brick. That's how you win, not by reacting, but by setting the agenda. Marcus hesitated. But public perception will follow results, Alicia said firmly. If we keep delivering transparency and fairness, noise will fade. People eventually see through fear tactics when reality doesn't match. Lindsay stepped closer, a newfound confidence in her tone. You're saying, don't defend, demonstrate? Alicia smiled. Exactly. The team exchanged looks. The old way of doing business would have been immediate damage control, flooding media channels with rebuttals, spinning narratives. But Alicia's way was different. Change behavior and let results silence critics. Still, the tension in the room remained. The media war had just begun, and it wasn't only about Horizon. It was about the entire industry's resistance to reform. Later that evening, Alicia walked alone through the nearly empty lobby. The marble floors reflected the soft glow of the equity banking banners now hanging proudly. She paused near the customer service desk where Lindsay was training a new hire on empathy-driven service protocols. The sight reminded her why she had started all this. Not for politics, not for headlines, but for people who had once felt invisible. Her phone buzzed. It was a message from an unknown number. You've made powerful enemies. Be careful who you trust. She stared at it for a moment, then typed a single reply. I know, and I'm ready. The next morning, she convened her leadership team. We're not counterattacking Apex, she said, projecting confidence even as others looked nervous. Instead, we'll accelerate community impact, launch 3 pilot programs early, bring in third-party auditors to publish quarterly fairness metrics, and invite consumer rights groups to observe. If they want to claim we're hiding something, let's make everything visible. Marcus nodded slowly, the corners of his mouth twitching upward. That's bold. It's necessary, Alicia replied. Maria leaned back, smiling for the first time since the fake news broke. You're changing the playbook, Alicia. Alicia looked out the window at the city, then back at her team. Her voice was quiet but unwavering. We're not here to win arguments. We're here to win trust. Later that day, she stood before a group of reporters asking about Apex Union's claims. She didn't flinch, didn't rant. Instead, she said simply, we will not respond to baseless speculation. Horizon First National will continue doing what we said we'd do. Deliver fair banking for everyone. That's our answer. And with that, she walked away from the microphones, leaving the room stunned by her refusal to play the old game. That night, as she reviewed the day's reports, Maria looked over and asked, Aren't you worried they'll double down? Alicia smiled slightly, eyes never leaving the data. We don't need to worry. We just need to lead. The morning sunlight poured through the glass facade of Horizon First National's main lobby, bathing the marble floors in golden light. It was a new day, but one that carried the weight of everything that had come before. Pain, conflict, reform, and now redemption. Rows of chairs lined the space, filled with employees, customers, community leaders, and reporters. In the center of the lobby stood a tall velvet curtain hiding something yet to be revealed. Above it, a banner read, Every customer deserves respect. Alicia Monroe stood near the edge of the crowd, dressed simply in a navy suit. Unlike the tense, combative days of the past few weeks, today felt peaceful. Maria Jensen approached, smiling. Are you ready? Alicia nodded. More than ready. This isn't about me. It's about what we built together. At 9:00 a.m., sharp, David Sterling, chairman of the board, took the stage. When we faced our darkest moment as an organization, he said, voice carrying through the microphone, we were given a choice. Hide or confront the truth. Today, We stand as proof of what happens when you choose the harder path." He gestured toward Alicia. And none of this would have been possible without Dr. Alicia Monroe, who refused to let one act of discrimination define this institution. The audience erupted in applause. Alicia stepped forward, her presence calm but powerful. "This isn't about one person," she said. "This is about a promise that no matter your background, your appearance, or the size of your bank account, you will be treated with dignity in this space. And to ensure we never forget, today we dedicate this permanent reminder." She pulled on the cord, and the velvet curtain dropped, revealing a bronze plaque engraved with elegant script. "Every customer who walks through these doors deserves respect, not because of position, wealth, or appearance, but because they are human." The lobby fell silent for a moment. Then applause thundered, echoing against the high ceilings. Phones went up, live streams went live. Hashtags began to trend. Respect for all and equity legacy. But then, something unexpected happened. From the back of the room, a man stepped forward, dressed in a modest gray suit. His face was familiar, but different, softer, humbler. It was Ethan Cole. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Some employees stiffened instinctively, memories of humiliation still raw. Security took a cautious step forward, but Alicia raised her hand gently. "It's okay," she said. Ethan stopped at the edge of the stage, holding a folded piece of paper. He looked at Alicia, then at the audience. "I know I'm the last person anyone expected to see here," he began, his voice low but steady. "For months, I've been in a workforce re-education program, one I agreed to because I needed to confront who I had become. And the truth is, I was wrong. I disrespected customers. I disrespected colleagues. I disrespected the values that banking should stand for." The audience was utterly silent, hanging on his every word. He unfolded the paper with slightly trembling hands. "Today, I want to say this in front of every customer and employee. I'm sorry. Not because I got caught, but because I finally understand the damage I caused. I can't erase what I did, but I can spend the rest of my career rebuilding trust and treating every person with dignity." Alicia stepped closer, her expression unreadable at first, then softening. "Thank you, Ethan," she said quietly. "It takes courage to stand here and say that." Ethan nodded. "I also want to thank you, Dr. Monroe. If you hadn't confronted me, I would still be that same person. You didn't just change the bank, you changed me." In the crowd, Lindsay Hart wiped her eyes. Eleanor Price, standing with her cane near the front, whispered to a reporter, "That's the power of giving people a second chance." The room erupted into applause, not for the fall of a villain, but for the transformation of a person. Social media feeds lit up again. Ethan Cole apologizes in public. Redemption arc complete. This is what leadership looks like: accountability and forgiveness. Alicia looked out over the crowd, taking in the sight of people from all walks of life standing together in a space that had once symbolized exclusion. She took a deep breath, her voice resonating through the microphone. "This plaque is not just metal and words. It is a promise to every person who walks through these doors that you will be seen, respected, and valued. And I promise that as long as I'm here, we will never forget why we started this journey." The sunlight shifted, streaming directly through the glass panels behind her, casting Alicia in a warm golden glow. Cameras captured the image, a powerful silhouette of a leader who had faced injustice and turned it into legacy. As the event concluded, people lined up to take photos with the plaque. Children pressed their hands against the bronze surface, and reporters filed stories about a bank once humbled now leading a national conversation. Outside, Alicia walked toward the entrance where the morning sun was rising higher, painting the city in hues of gold and pink. She paused for a moment, taking it all in. The sounds of chatter and laughter behind her, the feeling of something profoundly complete. Maria Jensen joined her, smiling. "So, what now?" Alicia looked ahead at the horizon, her eyes calm but determined. "Now we lead," she said simply. "No reactions, no fear, just leading by example." And with that, she stepped out into the sunlight, a figure not just of victory, but of hope. Behind her, the plaque glimmered under the morning light, and for those who had witnessed it, one truth became clear. The journey had ended, but the legacy had just begun.